We'll start. Welcome everybody to the council meeting. We'll start at the beginning of the agenda. Apologies and reasons for absence.
Our Borough Councillor, Burgess, can't make it, and our PCSOs, both of them, are doing something.
Yes, good. Would you say it wasn't on before? Declaration by any members of interest pecuniary or other than pecuniary in accordance with the Council's Code of Conduct. I don't think I saw much except Alan. Do you have an interest in the planning application?
Which particular one?
the one that said Alan Smith.
Was that the wrong thing to do? I suddenly realised it might be the wrong thing.
Well, I don't mind you doing it. It's just that as I was pointing out to me, that means you may have decided what you think already.
Well, not really. I just did that as a.
You just thought it was keeping in front of the game.
Yes, I did. Well spotted.
Expression hole and digging.
We weren't checking the punctuation, really.
Do I have to say any more at this point?
No. I think, it's not clear. It's an other than pecuniary at most, so it doesn't stop you doing anything.
Having pressed the button, I thought, have I done the wrong thing?
You can express opinions. It may be that you would choose not to vote, but
That's a referendum decided.
It's not clear in the code.
Yes.
What we've normally said is because we have our views taken into account here, we don't usually put them in, but there's nothing to stop you.
No, sorry.
It's just a loose end.
Yeah, it is. It's a point taken.
Never mind.
It's all the learning curve.
Indeed. Understood. As I say, it's only unless you happen to have a share in the property, then it's only an other than, so it doesn't count for very much. And you're pretty much given the opportunity to take your own view on it. I'm just suggesting what you might choose to do.
Yeah, thank you. That's
Okay.
helpful.
So we don't have any applications to be.
Jeremy 14A.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I missed you, Sue. 14A is across
Yes.
out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Other than. Okay. Reminder that this meeting is being recorded and will be published on the internet for everybody's information. And so at this point we'll adjourn for the public session. It says on the agendas, if you've got one there, as to how we work that. And we'll start with the community warden, Jo, because she needs to go away. So if you'd like to make your report, Jo.
Thank you. Yes. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Joe.
Okay. So I had some annual leave this month, so I haven't been around as much as usual. I have attended the market here and have spoken to various people and given advice and dealt with a few issues. Other than that, I've just recently done a bike marking event at the Youth Cafe in Tenterden, and Lee and I were discussing the fact that we could maybe set one up here to do some bike marking with the youngsters and indeed adults as well in the village. And
Sorry, what is that?
Bike marking, the security bike marking.
Oh,
And we also did some cycling safety things with the youngsters as well.
Sure.
So we're looking at maybe finding a venue that we could do that and get involved with PCSO and ourselves to set that up.
Good.
And we're also talking about going into the school to do some internet safety talks after Christmas. So we're going to go and talk to the school about the best way to split the classes to do those, because I've actually created 2 separate presentations, one for Key Stage 1 and one for Key Stage 2. So I don't know if anyone has any issues they'd like to raise with me to look into, or anyone has any questions.
No,
Okay.
not at the moment.
Thanks for that, Jo. I think Roger wanted to make a point of interest to you.
Oh, well, I was going to say, should I say what I wanted to do now? Because what I wanted to do was just say a few words publicly to congratulate, or in appreciation really, of all those who've been involved with transforming Coronation Field Memorial Garden, the memorial, the triangle, the village sign, because it is a transformation, and I think you've shown that change in the village can be for good. And for those who are still intent on not allowing us to have any change, that is something which we can really look at and be very proud of. in all respects. From the time that Caroline Everett suggested it and the idea was floated, lots of people got involved with us reaching where we are now, and the maintenance of it is also going very well. If you walk up the road, from up Poplar Road, to come past the antique shop, the view there, and I do, if you haven't stopped to have a look, I do when I walk round, as you know, with the war memorial, the sign, the triangle, the hedge and everything, it is absolutely stunning in my view. I just think it ought to be said. And to such an extent that Joe, as our community warden, was so taken with the whole thing, recommended to St Michael's, the other side of Tenterden, that they might have a look, and they have copied us. So I think that is fine.
Not at the War Memorial though.
No.
At the recreation ground, with a view to reducing antisocial behaviour. So they've also cut their hedge down to sort of
So I
the
think
same level.
the end,
It's actually the St Michael's councillor, ward councillor, because they do have wards in Tenterden, who chairs the community transport committee, which I attend, and he asked me after the committee meeting a month or two ago, I didn't realise you had put him onto it, and he said, "You're from Wittersham, I hear you've cut your hedge down, and how's it going?" And I told him how it had gone and how everyone was delighted with it, and then I heard from Roger that it had been done, and then he added the fact that it was actually your idea to pass it on to them. So it is interesting sometimes that Wittersham does lead
Well,
the
they've
way.
actually had a meeting with KCC, Ashborough Council, and various other parties, Tenterden Town Council, and the police and myself, to discuss how to deal with the antisocial
Because they
behaviour
had
there.
to be there.
And it was during that site meeting that
We
I
came up well.
told them about what we've done here. And,
Yes. That actually says another point about it, because when we were discussing it and we were having various views expressed at council meetings as to whether or not to do it, and there were some strong, only I think in a smaller number, but very strong views against, and one of the reasons that some of us, certainly myself, but other councillors agreed with, was that it is a good idea for areas where children play to be open to visibility and oversight, and not behind the bike sheds, as it were. And, you know, if that helped them to fix it, I think that's very sensible. So that's very helpful, Roger, thank you.
that's fine. It's just with Pam Pam Sweatman's memorial chair,
Oh, yes.
chair on the other side, and the arrival of the stone for the boulder for the. It is very exciting. Could I just suggest that we look at replacing the bench which faces the war memorial, please?
That's nowhere aware.
Or actually now councils to sit on
replank
it.
it, I think. I think it may only need to be replanked.
Yeah, well, that doesn't
But
replaced or repaired. Yes, yeah. That's
Good point. We've got an issue later down in the agenda to think about what to put on the budget for next year, and that's something that we could have a wet finger for as to when we get to it shortly. Good. Okay, thank you for that, Joe. So you disappear when you want.
yes.
We normally then, we took that so Joe could get away, we normally then take any issues to do with the planning applications first in the public session, and we've got two on the agenda. So we'll take them in reverse order, because is the lady on Sapala going to get here, or is she saying no?
Well, she was stuck on the M20, and I heard as I came along that they've just started the traffic moving,
It's
but
done
it's
in.
been really bad.
No way then.
So I think it's unlikely.
Okay. Anyhow, we'll do them in reverse order because the other people are here. So, part of Garden north of Poplar Farmhouse, and the deliberate mistake was to call it 2505, and it's actually number 1505.
Apologies.
Who on the public session side, the public, would like to talk? Someone in favour? Is there anyone here to talk in favour of the proposal to build the house? Yes.
Yes, Chairman.
Hello. So
Hello.
would you like to tell
Yeah,
us?
so John Collins from a company called DHA Planning, so along with Jonathan Gale, who's the architect to my left, between us we put the application together for the site. I think there's really three main issues. So the first one is, I suppose, point of access. Well, it's an existing point of access, already serves other properties, so we know it works. There's no accident record there. The client was very keen on going for a traditional design approach, and so worked with Jonathan on producing something which is Kent vernacular. And I think the third thing is we didn't want to be greedy in terms of what we were looking to put on the site. We thought that one nice property would fit on there very well. It's quite a big plot, surrounded generally by other housing. So beyond that, I've got nothing to say, Chairman, but obviously if anyone's got any questions, either of us will be happy to help.
And are you saying anything, Jonathan, or is that
I'm very happy with what John said.
right?
I mean, we feel that they're individual houses in individually quite large plots immediately around there, and it's an appropriate, we hope, approach to a piece of land that is otherwise redundant and has recently been bought back from complete wasteland in order to try and do something with it.
Okay, one little question of clarification before we go on to people who may want to talk on the other side, and then no doubt councillors will have other questions. There's a mention in the DHA, did you say DHA? That's
Yeah.
the right initials, yes. Submission, I gather, about a previous approved application, and because they don't all appear on the portal, we think that's the application for the bungalow next door, isn't it? The only ones that are on the portal are all refusals.
I thought there was a consent from several years ago.
We're talking several years ago.
Yeah.
There's a site history part of the
Yeah.
portal, and there were two housing applications that were both refused. But the one you've quoted is a different number, and we thought that may be actually the Sweatman bungalow.
Without it being in front of me, I can't really answer, Chairman. I thought it related to the site. I'll be more than happy to go online, correct it if it's wrong, and I'll email the clerk
It's a loose
of the
end.
parish. Yeah,
Yeah, we couldn't see because they don't put the old stuff on there in any detail,
yeah,
so we can't see what it was an application for, your number.
sure.
Um,
From memory, I think it's something that
It says a
the client
property.
gave me.
yeah, it says it's a property,
Yeah.
and we thought, well, about that time there was the Sweatman bungalow built next door to it, but we don't know. Okay, thank you for that. So, you've come on the neighbourhood side, I think, to talk about this from the other side. Who would like to talk?
Well, the access isn't very good because lately we've had I've seen two tankers trying to manoeuvre into up that drive, and they weren't able to make it, and it was even suggested that they go up my drive. Fortunately, I was at home, and they saw me and said, "No, we can't go up there, it's a private drive."
That's in the Poplar Field
Because
house right next
the
door
cars
to it.
opposite the access parked along the Poplar Road, and therefore the driver
Can't do the
couldn't manoeuvre.
No. Okay.
So I can't see how heavy construction lorries,
Yeah.
can possibly get round there.
And this, let's take the oil for an example, because even when construction's finished, they will probably
Sorry, I
have.
can't hear very well.
I'm sorry. Let's think of the oil lorries, or even if they have bulk gas, they'll need bulk gas deliveries. That presumably is going up there to, at the moment, Mick Sweatman's and to Poplar
I
Farm.
don't know about mixed recommends. I know it
Oh.
definitely goes to Poplar
Poplar
Farm.
Farm. And they share that drive already, don't they, both houses? Yeah.
Mr. Sweatman,
Yeah.
Nick Sweatman's
And Poplar Farm both
yes,
go up
that's
there.
right. We do.
Right. And then obviously the aim is, as John has already said, that would be the access to both build and then access to the new house if it is built.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also,
Go on, please.
why does it have to be such a big house? I mean, 5-bedroom house, it's ridiculous. and it's immediately behind mine. All the doors and windows look onto my property. I don't think it's on, you know.
Okay, thank you. It's also, is it your letter or your daughter's letter that came in to us as well?
It's her letter.
Your letter, good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen that. I think everyone's bought that,
Yeah.
or got that. Okay. Any other points, or do you, either of the other
No,
ladies?
as long as everybody's seen the letter, that's I don't feel comfortable really talking
Okay,
in in this setup. But yeah, as long as everyone's seen the letter, those are the
the other
points
points.
that we all
Sure.
really have.
I have quite a big problem with road safety there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of on-road parking. Vehicles are mounting
Are
the
you
pavement.
further along Poplar Field?
No, I'm at Poplar Field as well.
Same, okay.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of vehicles that are parked along there, and it's been noted on lots of occasions that vehicles are actually mounting the pavement. It's actually quite a serious risk to children, and it's only a matter of time before there's an accident there. Whether that relates to this planning or not, I'm not sure. But this is where the access is coming onto a very congested road already, and a very, in my opinion, dangerous road.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
There's numerous cars, and cars are speeding. They're mounting the pavement at speed. They're not coming onto the pavement slowly. They're actually skidding, slamming brakes on. If someone comes out of the driveway, the visibility is so poor that someone's going to be knocked over. Dogs and cats are run over quite regularly there. Well, not quite regularly, but there's a history of yeah.
Okay.
I've seen that happen more than once, Mr. Chairman, where people coming from what was the Swan have not slowed down and just gone straight onto the pavement. You confirm that at least 2 occasions.
Yeah,
Where
we
you're
do.
going past the parked cars on the
Yeah.
south side,
Mm.
yes,
Yeah.
I understand. Because of course, as you come along there, you don't get visibility of someone coming the other way until you're almost committed.
Yeah, and there's big lorries that have been parking and blocking. We've had roadblocks there. We've had the ambulance that can't come into the driveway, so it's had to park on the road. It's actually a real hazard there. And you've also got obscured further down near the Swan. You've got a blind corner. Cars have speed round there. You've got driveways, and they're difficult to get out of. Mrs. Cook at number 6, who's just recently deceased, who I do know was opposed to any planning or building behind her property. It was really difficult to come out of her driveway, and that's the other end.
Sure, off Poplar Field, yeah.
So it seems to be a
Okay.
bad road all the
Okay.
way along there.
Do councillors want to ask any questions, Paul?
Can I ask a question? It's connected with one of the letters and the design. So, Mrs. Buxton wrote a letter which talked about the wood-burning chimney, and I because I didn't have the plans in front of me, they'd gone on to the next council. I was trying to get in my own mind exactly how that would work, because I know that there are environmental restrictions anyhow. If you're actually burning something, it's got to be a certain height, I believe. But is it possible to just to clarify that, if you don't mind me asking? Because you obviously mentioned that point, and it's a valid point to bring up. I think
The
I've got...
wood burners
Yes.
in the new, in the
Yeah. So the plan is to have wood burners in the new property. Is that correct?
That's correct, but it's
Okay.
with full height chimney.
Right.
So
Just
the emissions will be high.
how high will they be?
Well, it's the height of a ridge of a 2-storey house.
2 feet 600 millimetres
Above the ridge.
Yeah.
Okay. So that'd be what about?
which meets building regulations requirements.
Okay. All right. And which side of the building is that on? Is it on your side?
There's 2.
There's 2.
There's
two.
both on the southwest. Right.
Okay.
But
But they're just on the same side.
Southeast.
Yeah. And they're on the same side as Mrs. Buxton's property.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to...
Mrs. Buxton's property is, right.
It's the next door
It's the one
neighbour.
that it backed
It's the
onto.
lady that's just spoken.
Yes, but is that the one in front of this?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, right.
Between
Well,
the
they're
site
not,
and
they're
the
not
road.
exactly on the same side, no, but
They're on the side elevation.
No, they're not. The one that
Right.
actually faces you is the southwest side, and this is on the southeast side.
Yeah.
I can demonstrate that to you with this plan.
Drawing there.
You are here, that is the southwest, and that is the southeast. So there,
We're no.
you're here,
Yeah, that's right.
correct. That is the southwest, and that is the southeast. So
Well,
they're not
rather than being
they're
on
not directly
the,
on your property.
Well, it looks like
no,
it
rather
is.
than them being facing the open fields, they are facing.
They
My
are
property.
towards your side. The one of them is towards the side of the side. Yeah.
The terrace.
It's not actually on the elevation that directly faces you.
Okay. All right, so it will be proximate, but it may not be quite as close as it might have been.
That's fine.
Okay, does anyone
Yes.
else have more
Yes.
questions? Yes, please, Colin.
Can I preface what I'm going to say by saying yesterday, I'm the next door neighbour on the other side. Yesterday, there was a very large tractor stopped outside and a 30-foot trailer covered the entrance to the property of Poplar Farm. Across the road was an old series of cars. That is not unusual. And I feel that the questions that this young lady is saying is that the access needs reconsideration. And that may mean that if you're to reconsider it, taking part of the garden away from Poplar Farm. Question. I read in detail your presentation, which included a reference to the configuration of the 5-bedroom house. Do I understand it in your drawings you show 5 bedrooms?
Correct.
In the language, in the content of the report that followed, it said 4 bedrooms and an annex downstairs instead of the 5 bedrooms. That is rather inconsistent with the plans.
Well, I must apologise about that because it is wrongly edited.
I feel professional.
It should indeed say 5 standard bedrooms upstairs, and I will get that changed. I apologise for that. Because there was a previous scheme that did indeed have 1 bedroom downstairs, and that is not the scheme that's been submitted in front of you. So my apologies if that is the case.
It also refers to the proposed 40 properties further to the side from Ashford Borough Council's 2020-30 plan. You have not adjusted that part of the plan neither, because you refer to that as a happening and not something that has now been deleted from the plan, Ashford Borough Council plan.
Has it definitively been deleted?
It has been deleted. Yeah. This is another, and there is a number of other small issues within your detailed, which gives me cause for concern in terms of expectation of what you feel is required in Wittersham, and including things like the 40 properties, including like the 4 houses which are being constructed by Ashford Borough Council. And you ignore that those situations could only enhance the property that you are building on behalf of the owners. And I find it concerning that those inadequacies have not been corrected in your submission.
Well, I need to check facts first. But the point with any application like this, so if there's something that's wrong, that should be corrected. But the point that we are making is that this is a site of a significant size that is surrounded on 3 sides by other existing development. And it's the kind of location where we would expect planning permission to be granted.
I am not necessarily against the planning application. Have you or the owners discussed it with any of the neighbours so far?
I'm not aware if Mr. Williams has. We haven't, but whether Mr. Williams has, I don't know.
I can say on the behalf of the other side of the property, there has been no discussion. No. I would have thought with a development of this size, you would, Mr. Williams or your good selves would have considered discussing it to allay any concerns that they may have before it came for a planning application to the parish council.
Well, we don't always consult on applications. I don't think the majority of agents consult on most applications. Where we think that they are perhaps controversial, then we would do.
I think...
I don't, personally, I think this is a site that is, as I said, surrounded by development. It's a site that I would expect normally to get a permission on. I mean, issues like the access. I looked at the access. I understand that it's a rural road. There will at times be things that block those kind of roads. But there's no accident record. I mean, they don't record cats and dogs, I'm afraid, but there's no other accident record on there when I looked. And visibility is good. KCC obviously will comment in due course.
I understand the Kent Fire Brigade service wish to comment as well.
Yeah, it's standard on cases like this. You can either provide a turning area or you can put in a sprinkler system, and either is achievable on this site.
I have to say, from a parish perspective, we have been concerned by both the speed that goes down Poplar Road and also the concerns of parking in Poplar Road. And opposite the entrance to Poplar Farm, there is a number of houses that do not have garages which permanently park their cars outside. I've got no further questions.
Okay, thank you for that, Colin. Does anyone else want to make
Can I
any
ask
points?
something,
Sue,
Jamie?
please.
There's obviously a vast problem with the access in and also the width of the road in. If permission is granted by Ashford, how would the construction vehicles get in?
There's actually plenty of room down there. So at the moment you wouldn't be able to turn a vehicle, but it's a big site.
We're not talking
It's not the
about
site.
We're not talking
No.
about turning when you get to the site.
No.
We're talking about
Getting
managing to
in
get
there.
up the lane, which is very narrow.
You mean Poplar Road, do you?
No,
No.
I mean the
Driveway.
private lane that goes up to the site and was originally provided, I suggest, for cars to go to the garage and Mick Swetman's car. Now, obviously they got transport in when he built his bungalow. So
Yes.
that's a long time ago. Right now, I've looked at that lane. It is a pretty narrow lane to take full width, heavy construction vehicles up, even if they turn around at the top. They've also got the swing, as has been pointed out, because out of a narrow Poplar Road, a lorry has quite a large radius turning circle, and there is no room for that large radius turning circle. That's why the oil tankers couldn't get in. Oil tankers are a lot smaller than construction traffic usually. So there are anxieties, but I'm just trying to correct you at the moment. We're not talking, I think, in Sue's case, on turning around when you get up there. It's
No.
getting up there
Yes.
without demolishing two hedges.
Yeah, I mean, if you were going to try and take biggest article up there, I'd agree with you. There are vehicles that you would be able to get up that access road.
And they're the
As
ones
they
who are
must
going to
be
deliver
done when they're
bricks.
constructed.
They're going to deliver bricks, they're going to deliver concrete for the base,
Yeah.
and they're small.
I didn't say small. There are vehicles that would be able to go up there. It's not as
Small
narrow.
enough, all right.
It's adequate to get a fire tender up there, so you can get other vehicles up there. A fire tender is a big vehicle.
Okay, we
Well,
Quick question. Forgive me if I've missed it. I was trying to work out from the application, I might have missed it, what are the plans for foul drainage? Because I don't think that was on there. I think it was unticked, that box. So you're either going to find somewhere connecting to the mains drainage, so I'd be interested to know what those plans are, or you'd have a sewage treatment plant which would require emptying. The last time I looked, the sewage treatment emptying effluent lorries that ply their trade around here are seriously big vehicles, and to get one of those up there, or indeed maybe the plan is to run, I don't know, 50 foot of foul drainage into a tanker, but they don't normally carry that length. So it was a bit of a question mark in my mind that wasn't answered in the application. Maybe you could
Because
clarify
you're not
that.
required to on the application. That's why there's a range of boxes to tick.
So you
there
just-
are, as you'll be aware, there are tankers that you would be able to get up there that are smaller, that you can hire. I mean, I deal with all sorts of small rural properties where there are very long, tortuous, narrow driveways, and they get into. So technically, there would be a solution.
Yeah, but this is on a
But
main
in reality-
road. It's the actual turning into that, the
I
angle
appreciate
at
that.
which they have to turn that is.
What happens
gonna
with
be-
the swept house at present?
I don't know. I've got no idea.
Well,
I suspect that they take over refuse.
That's one for the applicants to bring
Well,
to
they
us.
don't.
They don't.
But they don't.
They don't. The bins are left at the bottom of that
No,
driveway.
not the bins.
No, not the bins, the sewage.
Oh.
The sewage.
Is he on mains drainage?
no,
Or?
he's not on.
I don't-
I think he is, isn't he?
Yeah. Don't know.
I asked the question because I couldn't see any answer in that, and I could see a
I've
practical
never seen a truck,
problem.
you know.
No, I just raised that as a point.
Okay, can we close that and we'll come to our formal discussion on what we think about it later, but I think we've had everyone kicking around these issues enough and we've got a picture of it, okay? Right, so we've dealt with that one. Let's talk now about Safala. We haven't got anyone, I don't think, to talk about. Yes, we have. We've got Roger who lives next to it.
Next door, I think we probably are the only people who will actually see anything of the extension. And we won't see very much, and we're not overly worried. I hope I speak to my wife, but if I don't,
Is she with you, Roger?
but we will see the extension above the fence, and it's only about 3 feet, 4 feet across. There's a little lane which goes up to the Lewis's house, and then it's right the other side. And the only thing we're just slightly concerned about is what the material will be that we will be looking at. Is it brick? Is it going to be wood? Is it going to be Brendan? How's it going to be? Because it could easily be forgotten from their side because they're not going to see it. We are. And that was the only point that we made. Otherwise, we've looked at the plans and generally feel that it
So
would be
you
in keeping and everything.
presumably, Roger, will want to put in on your comment on the portal the fact that you have anxieties about that choice of
Yes.
material, and it
We're
needs to be
hoping to talk to the owners this evening, but obviously there's been a bit of a problem. We may still be able to do that, and then we'll be happy.
I get the impression she'd be quite happy to explain anything to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Does anyone else want to ask Roger anything? No? Okay, so let's, that's the planning applications talked about now, for now. Does anyone else here want to talk about, sorry, you'd like to raise something else, Roger?
Chairman, normally,
Not Roger,
normally
Jonathan.
the matter is voted on, having had the discussion. I'm
Yeah.
not quite sure why you...
Because we're in the public session at the moment. I'll adjourn the public, I'll close the public session once we have dealt with anything else that people in the public seats want to raise and anything that we want to ask them. We then go back onto the agenda and we bring up the planning issues fairly early in the agenda then.
Right, okay.
But we don't do it in the public session for obvious reasons. At the moment we're in the public session because otherwise you wouldn't be able to speak.
I'd just like to go back to Poplar Farm, if I may.
Go on.
I'd just like to say that that piece of land behind my mother's garden was not a piece of scrub land. It was a beautiful paddock which was left to just go into, and it became a wildlife haven actually. So, you know, there's lots of different wildlife over the years that have been there, and that's quite important, I think, for an area which has been quite under threat with other building, etc.
Okay, but so it was a paddock, what do you mean, for a horse or
Yes,
just...
it used to have a child round there, and it was part of the field at one time. It wasn't never part of the garden, it was part of the fields.
Okay.
Then became sectioned off as a paddock, historically, for a horse of previous owners of their farmhouse. And the other thing I'd like to say is the intrusion of privacy that house will bring with it.
Of course, we've
Total
got that
loss
one.
of privacy.
Indeed, yes, and your mother pointed out the windows looking in her direction. And right now the land which became scrub, as you just put it, that's been cleared, I gather.
Yes, only recently it's been cleared. For years it's been, before that it was a paddock.
Yeah, no, I get that, but
And
then it was overgrown and now that's been stripped down
Yes,
or
it's
whatever.
never been a
Or
garden.
felled, yeah.
Yeah, and just for clarity, I mean, it's got a greenhouse in it. And when you look at it, there are brick edgings and borders in that side.
Okay. Who else wants to raise anything in the public session while it's open? Dave?
If I could just quickly, regarding section 8 on your We'll be discussing that later, obviously, but I'd just like to say, if it is agreeable to Parish Council, the Legion would be grateful if we could have a site meeting then, so we can see the best place that it should go, and the type of tree as well.
We'll have to discuss the type of tree. We have a site in mind because we have a tree to come out, and ideally I think it'll replace that tree.
I mean, what the suggestion was put forward by the person who's put the money up for it was a walnut, and somebody did mention about a weeping willow, but he actually said, well, he'd like a walnut if possible, because then later on villagers can get the benefit of the fruit from the walnut tree.
Or the squirrels.
Oh, the squirrels. Whoever brings it. Well, then it's good for wildlife.
There's a fast squirrel around here.
The other thing is regarding that, and also section 9 and 10. It would be nice if at least 2 of the 3 could be done together, so it could be made an occasion of, as opposed to just sort of putting a plaque there and walking away. It might be able to make an occasion of it.
Okay, we'll come back to it, but the expectation at the moment is the plaque will be mounted very shortly on the stone, but of course it can be opened, as it were, whenever it suits with the tree or the names. The names, we're not in charge of the timing at all, because that's got to wait for this planning permission for the listed building. And the tree we are in charge of, other than the questions of nature and doing it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have things to raise? Nothing, Phil? No. Okay. Can I close the public session? Yes, thank you very much. So the public session is closed and the council will now carry on on its own. I need to sign the... No, I don't yet. We haven't got any minutes yet. So can I look at the minutes of the last meeting? There are 1 or 2 typos I noticed.
3 or 4 or 5 or 6.
Yeah, that's right. So never mind. Can I suggest the typos, and anyone else as we go through can mention any that they see and I didn't?
I have gone through a few.
In 3858, the end of the first line, we need to include record, a correct record. 3861, the bottom line, after councillors, which has been abbreviated, full stop, we need a comma. I think it probably did a full stop, replace the comma. Yeah. At 3863 line 3, they are clearly defined. Good.
And I've got 3863 bottom line.
And then we will agree.
We will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't spot that one. 3864. Now that the hedge has been lowered, the memorial stands out, and there's no comma there. Or
no, just
and then it picked up until just at the end. Community Warden's report.
Well, I've got 3868.
Oh, have you?
Yes. Permission is required as it is a listed building instead of as a listed building.
386.
Seem to make more sense. Do you not think it?
You could, yeah, I don't mind. It's the building, that's fine. Yes, we're not usually a scrap piece, this are we? And Community Warden's report. Jo apologised for not attending the meeting last month. She's been working with residents over issues relating to thefts with an S. And at the very end, and this is one that was there before and I didn't spot in the draft, alcohol only has 1 H.
Late night review, is it?
I didn't spot that one.
That's not good, is it?
So, is everyone happy with those minutes as amended? Everyone's fed up with them by now.
Did you alter George's declaration number?
Yes, it should be 3859.
Yes,
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't spot that
Yes, I
one.
think
That's
that's
much too
because-
complicated.
Oh, yeah, no, I know,
Well
I've
done,
got
sir.
that one too. Right.
So I've got to initially 17 places. 1, 2,
Oh, I'm here.
3, 4, and counting. 5, 6. Can I just put a cute couple on every page to keep them company? That's that one.
Oh, no, no, okay.
Is that it? No more
Yeah,
pages?
no.
Right, so I can sign here.
Sorry about that, folks.
Okay, the minutes I've already signed. So we can then, we'll put in the planning applications now instead of going through the matters arising, because they have got 1 or 2 long ones in there, or longer. So the planning applications, Safala first is on the agenda. Does anyone want to talk about Safala?
Can I just, excuse me, as I said to you that the applicant stuck on the motorway,
Oh, yes,
but
she
she
wants
did
to read
text
this
me to
out.
say that she was stuck on the motorway. Well, this came through at 31, half past. The sat nav said she's 25 minutes away. But obviously, sat nav not right. Okay.
Is her intention to come here?
It was.
Well, is there any way we could?
We can hang on.
We could.
We'll just defer it.
Defer, that's the word I was
We'll
looking for.
adjourn.
Defer.
If she comes in with adjourn.
Because I know what's going to happen. We'll agree on
And then
it. The
she'll-
minute we do it, she'll walk through the door.
Okay.
But if she intends
Yeah.
to come here, I think it.
Okay, the only thing is we
Yeah.
must remember to go
Need to.
back to it if she doesn't
We
show.
will.
We will.
Okay,
Not
so
sure
we
I'm
will-
going to get there before
Okay.
the end of the
We
meeting.
will remember.
Okay, well let's
just
see.
give her a best shot.
So we'll defer Safala and we'll come back to it, but we must remember to do that. So now part of garden north of Poplar Farmhouse. Who would like to talk about that? George?
Yeah, when I looked at it, I think the points that have been raised in the public session and from the acceptance letter and the neighbours' letter as well, the word that comes up every time is the access. And Mick was certainly saying about even an ambulance had trouble getting in when his wife was ill to get up there. So I think it's the access that's the main issue as far as I'm concerned, although obviously I understand the other comments made, and if also the neighbours are concerned, then that's obviously a concern as well. I don't see unless you can widen somehow that access and make a lot wider, which I couldn't see when I walked around that there was any way of doing that, or you put yellow lines down the other side of the road to stop the cars parking there, would be the only other way of improving that situation. So that would be my concern. Well, I know that's not
parking people have
no,
got.
precisely. Yeah.
Right, okay.
I've got nothing further to add. thanks.
Sue?
I think there's too many issues with it. The landscaping at the back of Poplar Field is appalling. The trees have all been chopped, and so they're now dying off because they're riddled with ivy, so that's not landscaped at all. But the main problem I've got is the access. It's not only the inn, it's the width of the driveway in.
The trees that have been chopped off, they're on the site, are they?
Yes,
They're
the
part
back
of
of
the
Poplar
clearance.
Field. They've been topped.
But they're not on Poplar Field, they're on the...
They're on the other side,
The
but
other
it's
side. They're on the
along
side.
the back of the houses.
Okay, they're on the side, okay, I understand. Right, Sue, thank you. Colin?
Nothing further than what I've already said.
Leslie?
No, I mean the only issue really is, and it goes beyond this application, and I think it is a concern to the whole village, is that stretch of road and how dangerous it is to drive down there.
Okay.
And as a pedestrian, and I think at some other time we should address this.
Right, Paul?
I've got nothing further to add to what our previous councillors have said.
Okay, my feelings, I think, going with what other people have said as well. My understanding, it's interesting that John has said he expects it to be straight through planning approval, and it might be. My understanding has always been that there is more recently a reluctance to allow houses behind others. There are quite a lot in this village. used to be a question, as Paul and I know from Sevenoaks, of building in back gardens until that became very out of favour. This is not in a back garden, it's on a site behind the back garden, but it's still stacking them up one behind another. The other thing that I think we haven't thought of at all, it's not been mentioned, talk about it being surrounded by houses on three sides. It's certainly got Swetman's on one side, it's got Poplar Field in front. I don't know what it's got to the west, but to the north it's got the village green, the registered statutory village green. And that is public land, and therefore the view that normally takes a view, I don't mean a view as what you see, I mean the attitude. The attitude of planning permissions or planning applications that have to be seen from the point of view of the public street scene and are often thought of also in terms of the view from the public right of way would also of course apply from the village green. And I think that personally I'm not so worried about having anything there. I mean, Mick Swetman's bungalow is there, but I am rather worried about a large 5-bedroom house there. And I think that in terms of the setting against the village green is big. It's not the only big house there, but we are adding one where it was previously open, and it is bulky. So they're my feelings. And of course the access of turning off of the road and on the road. So what do people want to do? Who's in favour? Anybody in favour of supporting it? No? Anybody abstaining? Alan is, and Colin is, because Colin's next door as well. So are the other people objecting?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Now what I think we do have to do in view of something further down the agenda is we have got to make our objection fairly clear, because Ashford still refused to have a discussion where we have objected before they grant, if they decide to, and therefore we've got to put in a full reasoned case. Is that something that you would like to put together in draft, Colin?
I'm not going to be here for most of the time.
Oh, all right.
That's the problem.
Do you need to be here to do it?
Pardon?
Do you need to be here?
Well, might be far away.
Oh.
I will be far away.
We'll be far away.
I mean, the key points were the access,
Yeah.
and then the point you've just raised about the village green and the proximity to that. They're the key things.
All right. Well,
Sorry.
you just
And obviously
down to
there's-
me. I'm just conscious
No,
that
I
we're going to
could
be
put-
going away.
I can put some thoughts together and pass them through to you, but I shall, and it may be that I send them back to you via
Yes,
the
I mean, we'll have to circulate the draft anyway,
Yes.
as we've done on others. It would be nicer if we could just say we object in a couple of lines, but we have been burned that way, and we need to, now we know that they're not willing to discuss it, we have to put in a full reason objection, or reason to object. What deadlines have we got?
Yesterday?
Ah.
No, actually, it's
Day before yesterday.
no, Saturday.
Saturday gone.
Yes, Saturday. But I did get an extension to our meeting.
Well, I don't think, you might want to put in a holding email, but I don't think Ashford can have it both ways. They've just told us that they expect us to give them full reasons for our objection, rather than them having a consultation with us. So now they've got to give us time to assemble it.
Okay, I'll email.
May I make a suggestion that, given this timing issue, that you copy the email? You might already do this, of course, forgive me, but if you don't, copy it into our to Councillor Burgess.
Okay.
Good idea. Good idea. Right, but that does mean it's got to be done pretty promptly. So you and I have to get together.
Yeah.
Okay, as usual. Right, thank you very much for coming, guys.
Thank you.
So the next item on the agenda then is ABC policy on parish council objections to planning applications. You saw, I think, all of you, that they've blown us out on that again
Yeah.
and said, oh, it's much too difficult and we're ever so busy, and you've just got to do the work yourself instead.
I think one of the points that need to come out is the lack of consultation with local people.
With local people. That's true.
I
It is,
think
that isn't good.
That's why I made it play with it. And also the information concerned in the
I
plan.
noticed that myself, that it didn't match.
The inconsistencies in the actual report.
Yeah.
Indeed.
And I don't understand why not ticking a box excuses.
Yeah.
Because it's a choice. You tick one or the other. You can't just ignore it. As HM revenue was put.
Okay. All right. So that's that one. Thank you. Change of KCC policy on free school transport. An update. See where I've got to here. Right, a bit of news, not huge news, but a bit of news. Since the last meeting, and some of you have picked this up on emails meanwhile, we had the appeals of Helen Thompson and Keely Potter and Helena Sargent. I think they were all since the meeting, and that's when it went on BBC and Kent Messenger. They contradicted one another. Keely's and Helen's contradicted each other, and Helena with two children, they contradicted, one child contradicted the other, and you came through the middle. I wrote a long criticism of the KCC policy to Mike Hill, which you saw. He decided, when he got that, and I believe rolled his eyes and went, "You gods," he passed it on to the education department, which was slightly unfortunate because I'd been a bit rude about him. And I know that's a surprise. But I also then afterwards, raised a number of policy and legal questions with the Department for Education. They haven't yet answered. I was allowed 4,000 characters and I used them all. They haven't yet answered them. I rang yesterday and they've got till the end of this week under their standard, 15 working days. So they have the rest of the week. I got a call from Mike Hill yesterday morning. He called me. I'd emailed him saying what's going on. And he called back. He'd just had a long conversation. He's told me I can tell you this. He's just had a long conversation with the Cabinet Member and Portfolio Holder for Education, which is Roger Goff, and either a Senior Legal Advisor or the Senior Legal Advisor. They are examining the problems we've raised with the policy and they're trying to find a legal solution to them. There are no promises, he said, but we hope that they will come up with something. I think, reading between the lines, they know that it's a mess. We know it's a mess. I think even they know it's a mess.
Is it possible we could encourage them not to be totally reliant on a legal solution, but maybe a fair social and equitable solution would be
I understand
really
that.
welcome.
I understand that, and I am not sure. I'm using the words I was given.
Yeah, no, of course.
I am not sure how much they are actually constrained. But of course, sometimes there are general laws that can catch them for being. I mean, the thing is, they can't say they've got to be equal for everybody, which is, we've got to do it so it's all equal. It isn't equal. That's our first problem. There's nothing equal about it. Now, the next thing was then that after I'd spoken to, just before Mike rang me, another resident was turned down yesterday at the internal review stage. When they have been told they can't have it, they can ask for an internal review of the decision. Later on, they have the appeal that goes to the independent panels, which is where the others have been. So this is a later one. It went to the internal review and it was turned down, and so it's now got to go to formal appeal, and I told Mike all of this. Without going into it in detail here, because we're on the public recording, this new case has specific difficulties that raise problems for the KCC policy. I mean, it is a real messy case, and I think it's the sort of case where the policy cannot possibly answer it. It's going to be, whatever they do is wrong.
Mm.
Therefore, they've got to think about the policy in a broader way. And I think probably the policy was badly worded, and they're not giving officers the chance to look at it sensibly.
That's
They often
the key
write-
word, isn't it?
They often
Common
write
sense.
policies, I think. People who write policies, they put on their sort of hard and fast hat, and they don't think of all the ways in which it'll come home to bite them. I have got here the letter that was sent refusing the thing after the review, and there are some very interesting bits in it which, if this doesn't go through, I think this will be off to the Department for Education as well. The nearest appropriate school for transport purposes is the nearest school that's considered suitable by the Department for Education to provide education for the child's age and ability. This includes all academies, free schools and faith schools, even if a family is not of the same faith. Now, that's not likely to be a problem here because children go to the CFE school no matter what. But they have just said there that if you're nearest to a Muslim school, you go to a Muslim school, and I'm not getting at Muslims, it's just that there are Muslim schools in this country, you know, or Jewish school.
So you could be.
You pay your own transport, or you go to a school that is inimical, really, because after all, they are, I can't think of the right word, but they are more proselytising religions than our little C of E primary. Another bit then goes on. The rationale behind transport eligibility assessment requires that parents must have tried to access their nearest schools, and where this hasn't been possible through no fault of their own, the council may assist. This is where you're not even given a place in the school, and the council says, well, in that case, we might pay. You didn't even get a place there. So they could all be told to go to Rye when Rye was full.
What I don't understand is where we've had one appeal that's been successful,
you're right.
which is no precedent then for every
Yeah,
other
that's
appeal
what they say.
which is being turned
It
down.
It gets better.
Doesn't make any sense.
You know that parents are supposed to choose schools themselves. This is government policy. Parents are not required to name schools in distance order from their home, but it will impact their child's eligibility for school transport if they do not. So you have a free choice of schools so long as you find which distance they are and put them in that order. But you don't know which distance they are because the case that's just been turned down here was told to check on the map with Google and found that Rye was further, but Kent have said it's closer.
Yeah.
The Transport Department have access to the updated measuring system that's now used. This system offers more accurate distance calculations and also benefits from updated road and walking route network information. But we don't agree with it.
That's from the sales pamphlet.
All distances between children's homes and schools will be measured using Kent County Council's updated software. In this way, all children assessed consistently. We don't think it's very consistent, because someone living in Jubilee Fields is held to be nearer to Rye, and someone living in the street, which is nearer to Rye, has been told they can have Homewood.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a point on there? It strikes me that alongside all of this, there's, and you might well have already talked to her, but it seems appropriate that we at least sort of talk to the head of our school in Wittersham. Well, on the point that this has obviously caused increased stress on children and their parents, and we've also had a situation, I believe, where one child was withdrawn from Homewood because of the stress that this all caused. Now, this is just going to get steadily worse. It's not going to get better. And has the head formally made comment to KCC about this matter?
I'm not sure that the head has made comment to KCC. I think the head took the view.
Where?
What?
Sorry,
Wittersham.
Yes.
I can't remember her name. Sorry.
Yes.
She's already made comments.
She's written letters
about the stress and to the
She's
KCC.
written letters to KCC as well.
Okay, thank you.
She is also, because the parents had to choose their schools by 31st of October, she wrote to them not saying they wouldn't get Homewood, but that they should be very careful. I mean, the very annoying thing about this one who's just been turned down is that she rang KCC before moving to Wittersham and was told to look it up on the computer herself, and having done it, moved to Wittersham, she's then been told she you know, it is that bad. The last thing, by the way, just to finish on this, is that
a good lawyer.
It says that where members of the regulation committee, that's this final appeal, consider that support is appropriate, they have the discretion to override policy for individual cases. But seemingly, as I've written, no requirement for consistency. Because they actually say in appeal decisions that they're not precedents. So it is a good old mess, I'm afraid. But they are, Wittersham is very much on their minds.
You really think it is?
Oh, I think Mike is right that they are I mean, I'm sure they're discussing more than Wittersham.
Yes, it's other
but I think Wittersham has been, as a result of Helen Thompson's fantastic campaign herself and getting on the telly, and me badgering Mike Hill with some pretty long stuff that you've seen, I think we're up their nose more than some.
I mean, one has to guess that the appeals committees were staffed by different.
I believe they have a sort of a potluck of people who pass.
And it has to. That's possibly could explain the inconsistency of the outcomes, because there were different people sitting on the committee.
I believe that in Helen Thompson's appeal, they more or less said, "You've made so much fuss, we'll give it to you." Which is awful if that's true.
That's the wrong reason for keen decision.
But it does beg the question as to whether they do rotate their appeals panels. But it does beg the question of whether or not precedent is advised to each successive panel. If they're making these decisions in complete isolation.
Well, that was part of my point.
Yeah.
If the one panel didn't pass on their decision,
apparently that's the way it is.
That's got to be a lack of.
That's pretty well excusable, really.
The one who had the earlier appeal.
That's just neglect.
One of the ones who had the earlier appeal and didn't win, having seen the case that was put forward by the later one that did win, said to me, in effect, I was disadvantaged because we went in. I mean, we thought, you and I, had every hope that the first appeal was going to be successful. It was when the first appeal was turned down that the second appeal multiplied everything by 3 and went in and gave them a tough half hour until they said, all right, we'll give it to you.
I think you should tell Mike that you plan to recommend to the BBC they invite Paul Carter to actually go on air to comment on this.
Oh, right.
I mean, that's where it's got to get to.
I've mentioned that Paul Carter's going to enjoy it.
He's got to come out of his rabbit hole.
I mentioned that in those
difficult one to deal with.
I should think very difficult one, you know. But that's why he's paid more money than most of us have seen over the last 5 years.
In the context of all the other cuts they're making, that would be insignificant, I should think.
Indeed. Okay, well that's school transport. I think that, this is last meeting we were asked to take it on. We have taken it on, and we have had, I don't know that we've had all the success we might have done, or even any, but we've certainly got it on the agenda with Helen's great actions as well.
I suppose what also would be nice to know, and I don't know how we find this out, is that other villages have been dealt with in the same way. I mean, do you happen to know that? Because Wittersham, being on the edge of the catchment, is vulnerable.
I think we have this extra issue about going over the border into East Sussex, and they say that is not part of the policy. You can be moved anywhere. I think the other villages are catching something similar. Apparently Appledore are now, some of them in Appledore are being told they ought to go to Brenzett, whereas they used to come here. It is a...
Well, Brent's only a primary, of course.
Yeah.
But you're
at primary level, they don't come to Wittersham.
I think it's my understanding that the lady who initially failed, with the support of the lady who was successful, is gone to the Ombudsman.
Yeah.
And I think that will ratchet up considerably.
They take an awful long time to make their decisions.
Indeed.
We must also, I think, as the media has got involved, keep them up to date.
Indeed. I know that Helen Thompson got hold of John Hunt, who I think it is John Hunt, who did the BBC, and told him that she had been successful. But there was also Sunday Politics wanted to come and talk to them earlier. That hasn't happened, but it's bubbling. I mean, I think again, Kent and Kent are in a position, if they wanted to go and find out what the temperature is in the press, and see how much problem they have got. But we're also waiting for this DFE response, which may be a complete blank. But I have asked. I think you've seen it all. I've asked very detailed policy and legal questions. And we'll see what they come up with. The other thing is that we have still got Damien Green, who said, "Oh, I'm confident it's all been dealt with by Mike Hill." The good thing about Damien is that he can go and kick the Department for Education harder, either through officials or through ministers. Well, we haven't asked him yet. We're waiting for.
This can be resolved satisfactorily by KCC, but do keep me in touch as the matter develops.
Indeed. So at some point, if KCC come back with a blank again, then he's next in line.
Good.
And the fact he said, keep me in touch, we can't be pushed off too easily by his team either, hopefully. Okay, so that's school transport. The other matter arising was the main modifications to the Ashford Local Plan 2030. We put that in since the last meeting. I don't think there's anything else to say, is there?
No, it's on the website as well.
Oh, good. Good. Okay. Right, we've done the planning applications. So we then get to the Housing Needs Survey update. The surveys went out with the outlook. There is a pile of blank, spares in the shop and in the church, is it? Yeah.
Yep.
Anything else to?
I spoke to. I was at the Action with Communities in Rural Kent AGM this afternoon, and Tessa O'Sullivan was there, so I had a quick word with her, and she said that a couple of things. First of all, I said, "How's it going?" She said, "Oh, we've had quite a few in."
Good.
I don't know how many quite a few are, but well, I think quite a few more than one there. Secondly is that the closing date is the 30th of November, but she's on holiday for a few days, so she's not going to look at it to finalise it until the 15th of December. However, it will be analysed before that while she's away, so she will have the sort of the outcome by the 15th. Is that okay still for the draw? And I said yes, it was. And I said that you'd be speaking to Dax about.
I've done that. We did fail to make it clear enough that, of course, they have to put on the voluntary name and address in order to be in the.
I think he said that.
Dax has had people asking him, and I've said, well, obviously they've got to work that out and put their name and address in.
Yeah, you can't. Otherwise, I'd be drawing one and saying, well, they have to keep drawing it until they found one with a name and address in it, which is fair. And it's all being drawn anyhow incognito, so we don't know anything about that. It's all under.
What we do need to do is to approve the amount for the hamper, isn't it? Is that down here somewhere?
Well, only under this.
Yeah. Well, he's got one. He's got his raffle going anyhow.
Yes.
That hamper looks very splendid.
Yes.
I was going to make the suggestion that we have one of similar stature.
I was told by Aisha that unlike last year's that were in the sort of £70 bracket, I think these are more like the £100 bracket that she said that they put in. So we're in that sort of ballpark.
Yeah.
So everybody's sent theirs off?
Yeah. Yes.
As the man said, you've got to be in it to win it.
Yeah, that's right.
Is it, as closing date's not until the 30th of November, do we need to just nudge? Is there any way we can have another...
Next door, Facebook?
Oh, I'll be doing that.
Will you?
Yeah.
What do you mean, like the clerk in the sandwich board?
Well, I don't know.
Mention it at the market next week.
Last week we had things on the tables.
Yeah. Are you asking us to approve some expenditure then?
Yes.
£100?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Did you notice that the West Farley, in the, if you did read the thing about the highway seminar, West Farley had a survey that they hand delivered to every house, 700 houses, asking their opinion about spending money on a what do they call them? Community loan, but it comes from the government debt office, cheap interest loan of quite a lot of money. And they put out 700 and they got 11 back.
For bowling.
Well, that's,
And that was for speeding, which they were worried about.
Can I just add that I have completed the application form for a member's grant of £500.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Good. Well, we could push the raffle price.
We'll
up.
remind them,
Yes.
remember when we see him.
Yeah, we've reminded him already, but you're quite right, we can do it again. Okay, so that's the housing needs survey, the SIDS update.
I haven't had anything further from
We know
them. I
from
told them
last
what we
month.
wanted.
Okay. What I have said to Yvonne is to press the KCC guy again. You remember he said that they can't do anything down Swan Street because they don't think they own the verge. And I've asked Yvonne to say, okay, what exactly are your powers over this verge? Because if you don't own it and you haven't got any powers, we need to go and ask one of the householders to say, do you mind us putting one on it? It can't be both ways. They may say, oh, you're not allowed to put a road sign up without our approval. In which case, okay, we will get the approval for the land and then you approve to put the sign up.
Okay.
Because Swan Street is actually a serious speeding problem.
Yes.
Because it's on a hill.
Yeah.
Okay. Request from Isle of Oxley branch to plant a tree. I think that's fairly straightforward. Dave made his points earlier. Can we agree that subject to the detail we are happy for that to be done? It's got a donor to pay for it.
Yes.
We do know that the one that's like this near the boulder, it's handy because it's between the War Memorial and the boulder, Dave. And you'll need a little plaque presumably to say, centenary and blah blah blah.
Do we know why that tree needs coming out?
It's like this.
It's not dead.
No.
Not
It's
diseased.
got a strange attitude.
No, it's just that you don't really want to
KCC
plant
tree.
something into a place. If it's a diseased tree, you don't.
It's a diseased tree.
It is.
It was recommended by the Man of the Trees chap
tree people.
that it ought to come down.
Yeah.
Maybe we recommended a lot ought to come down, but that was one of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're happy with that. That's agreed. The boulder and plaque update. Well, you've seen the boulder, I hope.
Yes. Very
nice.
very impressed.
Yeah.
Now, can I ask people to agree that Yvonne and I will draft a letter of thanks to Mr. Gallagher, who is the chairman and owner of the quarry, who gave it to us,
Yes.
thanking him. But we'll do that once the plaque is there and we can take a photograph of it.
Yes.
Okay.
Can we, picking up on Dave's point about, the most important buildings are unveiled by members of the royal family, etc. You never actually do the unveiling, the thing's up and running and working.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think the idea of having a commemorative unveiling is a great idea. And secondly, given the fact that it commemorates RAF Wittersham, should we not be writing to the Royal Air Force requesting a senior officer present him or herself on the day? Good photo opportunity. No. I mean, there's a few Air Commodores kicking around at the moment looking for something to do. So I think we should aim high.
Yes.
Why not?
But we want someone in uniform. We want a good photo opportunity and make a real show of it.
Right. Trenchard, that was his name.
Well, that might be more of a challenge.
With Village Green, you had the tapping interval.
Yes, could be. The tram
That's
tap.
what they're doing, yes.
That might be different.
That would be the
I think the red arrows.
That might be the village green.
I think the least they could do is bring an air balloon and tether it to the bowl. That's the original plan.
Check that it's heavy. Okay, all right, fair enough. I think it's a good point.
Makes
Maybe we
sense.
should
Makes
make
sense to
more-
make
make
make something
occasion
of
of
it.
it.
Yeah, that is a good point. And somehow or other, either through...
I'm sure the Legion will be able to help us identify the correct senior officer in the correct service.
Well, it'd be RAF.
Pre-RAF.
Okay, good points. Additional names on the War Memorial update, as we said earlier, we've got to wait on the...
I've asked for a site meeting with the stonemason up there.
Right,
You can tell
the
us.
stonemason for size of letters and that, and then we can put that in on the planning application. The task list deferred from the last meeting. I'll just spin through these and anyone say anything that they want to as we go. So this is what we had from the beginning of the year. It's not got to be done in a year, but it's what we had as big things to think about. We've got the Invicta law sorted. The land holdings to be registered. Yvonne, you're still waiting on the bank? The bank are still thinking about what they're going to do to try and come up with an excuse for why they've lost the deeds or whatever, or where they are, because we think they're in Ashford, but they don't seem to be able to get their act together for who's got the key and when Yvonne can go and collect them. Branding PC assets, the two we said would go in parallel, land registration and sorting out signs. We've got to do that, but that's probably going to be more of a spring, summer job than a winter job. The churchyard wall, we were trying to get more quotes. That's one that Yvonne's got on her list. SIDS, we know what's happening. Voices proposals, we reported last time that Yvonne and I met with Roger Parker to talk through and came up with a final list, which we should not lose track of now. Anyone who's got one on that ought to be thinking of how to do it. Thank you for coming, Roger and Valerie and Phil and Dave.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
It's only the people who haven't been before, you see, that's still finding it fascinating.
You're free to go anytime.
You're asleep.
You'll learn. The FAQs and useful contacts, that's gone. Forget that, we've done what we did. The land for the cemetery work is underway. Yeah. Renovate bus shelter, we need the survey, which will be sometime next year, and we can think of that for the budget as well. Yvonne? The green and Coronation Field, we've done the bits that we've done. What we've still got to think about is pulling back the hedge, providing the gap, and the path up to the bus shelter gate. They're things that we talked about.
The priority is that corner, is the cutting back bit.
Indeed, that's good.
That's the first thing, the safety aspect.
Indeed, I don't disagree. They work on the hedge yet. Additional names on the war memorial we just talked about. Other work on the village green, not the green. That's a possible follow, and the pond. That's a possible follow-on from the cemetery work. That's some years off. Council owned Christmas lights. We never went any further with it, and I think the proponent was David, who's gone. Sign to the village green and play area. I think that should happen, but we've got to get permission for it once we decide what we're doing. And the annual drinks party, I think, is a dead duck as well. Not the one that we have at Christmas, but for new residents. Because
like
we're going to get one or two.
Invite them to Christmas.
Invite them to Christmas.
Indeed, we can do that if we can decide where they are and who they are.
Well, we can just put out a notice.
Indeed.
Actually, you can spot who they are because they all sign up for next door, saying they've arrived.
Yeah. Do you know an electrician?
Yeah.
Welcome. True. Okay. Community and information effectiveness. That's one for you, Paul.
Oh, right. That was sparked off by a couple of things, but I came across there was a communication that came out from, I think Yvonne passed something on, and it led me to the NAV document, which is quite a big one, which I think I sent out. Yeah. And the rather than go through all of that, because there are aspects of that I think are relevant to us, and other aspects are probably beyond what we really need. It struck me that Yvonne does a great job pushing out communications to us, but I'm not sure that we do necessarily as much as we could do about how we pass them on. For example, if I get something that says from I don't know, Kent Police about being safe and being aware, or what to do in case of counter-terrorism initiatives and when you're on trains and public transport, I read it and think yes, that makes sense, but I don't do anything with it. And we rely quite heavily on the internet in certain areas, but we have a significant part of our community that doesn't have access to that. Particularly when you start to talk about some of the emails out into adult social health care and so on. A lot of elderly people, vulnerable people, lonely people don't have access to the internet in the same way we all do. So the reason I wanted to just raise it was, are there any ways that we can start identifying messages that we feel we ought to, having got them from, say, Yvonne or from Jeremy, what do we actually do with them? Do we read them and just say, oh, that sounds jolly good, and don't do anything? Or I think we ought to start thinking about if there are certain things that affect parts of the community that don't necessarily have the same access that other parts do to that information, how do we make it more aware? Yeah. I don't have a magic answer for it, but I just think it's something that we need to think about. Sometimes we might say we put a short piece, which you've done in the past, in the Outlook, because
Well,
that's a
seems
good
a
way
good idea,
of putting
doesn't
it. But I think we, rather than just, we seem to get more and more and more stuff coming from Yvonne.
We do.
Okay, which is fine, but we need to, I think, rather than just receive it and be a sort of repository, we need to decide whether or not there are, which ones actually we need to take some action to
I think
pass it on to the
you've
appropriate.
probably answered the question yourself, because when we get something, we need to
Yeah.
ask ourselves
Selves,
that question.
yes.
What do we need to do with this? Who needs
Yeah.
to know about it? And we let them know.
So my suggestion is to probably formalise that.
Yeah.
At each council meeting we say, is there anything that we've had
Yeah.
that we feel should be passed on?
Yeah.
And B, if so, how are we going to do it?
So I think that's
is it a
important as well,
leaflet?
otherwise each
Yes.
of us could just start doing it
Yeah.
almost
Well, we've
willy-nilly.
got different people available to
Yeah.
us. For example, Lee, you know,
Yeah.
there could be something that is specifically relevant to vulnerable elderly people. We need to make sure
Yeah.
that what we get, I'm sure you all connect, but I think as a parish council, we need to take the responsibility for maybe grading that.
Yeah.
Just not tonight.
Very good. Yeah.
There is one thing that does worry me a bit, or irritate me a bit about it. I don't disagree with what you said, Paul. The people who have got the money and the resources and want to get a message out are busily sending it to a handful of parish councils. They say, that's great, we'll just email Yvonne all the time. And then the parish council, who have got no money, no resources, are expected to pass it out to 1,000 people.
Yes.
And that isn't really on. If Southern Water or the police or Kent County Council or Ashford or anybody else want to communicate with the public, they should damn well communicate with the public. Obviously tell us.
Yeah.
But to expect that, oh, well, we've done it, we've sent it to the parish council, is the biggest cop-out going.
But are
And
they?
we
They're
should-
not going to. They're not going to change.
Well,
Well, certainly the water, the commercial organisations could, maybe we should.
They do put some stuff in with bills, to be fair.
We could put in and ask for a
Well, do we
grant.
not be there?
We could ask for a grant. We could go back to Southern Water and say, delighted to pass on your messages. We'd like a communications grant, please. I mean, people are asking Southern Water for a community grant all over the place, and we should maybe not be an exception. So,
Good idea.
you know, at least start with them, and then if there are other ones like Open Reach or British Gas or whatever, when it comes to the public bodies, maybe that's a different.
Well, I mean, the risk is that we just all get totally bombarded by emails.
Yes.
From
Yeah.
I mean,
It's going up. It's not going down.
And possibly there is some merit in sending it to the parish council, because at least somebody in the village knows, rather than 1,000 emails going out to the village, we get one. And I mean, there's some dismerit in telling everybody
I
from
think
somewhere.
What do we do
but
with it? That's
I
the
think
point.
what Paul's saying is that we're trying to get to the people who won't have
Necessarily
emails.
get those.
Yes, that's yes.
They are.
I mean,
probably
So what I'm saying is that
The
if we get
we all know
if we get a whole
people who
bunch
don't
of
do the internet,
emails,
don't we? And you know that's
we ought to say to them, are there any that we really feel are a priority to get out? And if so, what are we going to? How are we going to do that?
Yeah.
And then just see how it goes for 6 months.
Good idea.
Okay, well,
Okay,
let's see
that's
how
fine.
we can get on with that. I think you probably read these things more thoroughly than I do, and some others, Paul. You seem to be a very good reader of these things. I must admit, I sort of mark them as read and think of going back to them later.
I
tend to agree.
Wife's on holiday.
Right, initial
The last time.
proposals for consideration for the budget to be finalised in December.
Mhm.
Well, I've obviously brought a different one to the one I marked up at home, where I put some stars down it. Some things here we know will cost budget money, Yvonne. The land registration, the branding the PC assets, the churchyard wall, our contribution to the SIDS, the rest of the cemetery, the bus shelter, the work in the green, the War Memorial extra names.
Mm-hmm.
They're all budget items potentially.
Yeah.
And we were talking about things earlier, weren't we? Some people mentioned things when we were going through the earlier part of the agenda and said, oh, that will come up for the budget item.
Yes, it was a form in the Guardian, wasn't it? Didn't David bring it up about
Bench.
the bench?
The bench,
The
replanking the bench, yes.
The other thing I was going to suggest was it was a suggestion actually that a previous parish councillor raised and put forward, which we all agree was a good idea and didn't do anything about it. And that was David Green's suggestion, that we had an entrance to the village, gateway to the village. And I'm just minded by the comments. You know, the perennial problem of speeding and what have you is not ever going to go away. However, we've all seen some of those villages where the sort of the white, welcome to wish, please drive carefully, or just some message. And if it only reduces one vehicle and prevents an accident, then it's worth doing. I mean, we could even have a couple of hooks, and we could change the message on it. You know, sort of, a speed watch out today or something. That would slow
the
everyone
idea of the gates, it depends exactly where the 30 signs are, because that's where they have to go.
Yeah.
And because we can't move the 30 sign, it has to be where it is.
Well, it's, as you come in along from Stocks Road, it sits very nicely.
If we've got the opportunity and the verge there, and we get permission, then that, I think, makes a lot of sense.
We might, of course, find out in the KCC deny they own any of that.
I was going to say that
in which case we can appropriate it, I think.
I did go to them before and mentioned this and said, how do we go about this? And they said, well, you come up with where you think, and we'll come along and tell you whether you can or not. Just the same, exactly the same as the SIDS.
Yes. Maybe I'd say put it in the budget for asset branding.
Agree.
Okay.
Yes.
Does anyone else have anything to put in now, or else just think about it by next month, because we have to finalise the budget next month?
It needs to be now, because we have got to have a meeting before next month so that we can put our budget to the council.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Well, we've got a good list off the obviously
unless
that's
you
one
think
reason
of anything
for the task list.
in between.
Do we know how each of those items either cost or what they may cost?
No, it's wet fingers.
So anything we think of between now and the end of this month, we need to.
What is quite useful to know is that apart from the cemetery, which has got a lot of expenditure on it still to come, we haven't got money in the bank.
Yes.
Is this £900 for the outlook mentioned there?
Yeah, that's another matter, isn't it? Yeah. Is that separate?
Yes.
That's separate. That's for now. And then next year it gets budgeted anyway as an ongoing thing.
Okay.
Yes, they keep asking it. I'm amazed how quickly 6 months goes by. I think they do it every 4. Okay, so can we approve the donation to Outlook on Oxney?
Yes, definitely.
Kent Men of the Trees, we didn't win anything this year, but Yvonne has got a report that she might wish to summarise.
I've got to ask.
No, we didn't even get commended. We decided that this year's winner was the village of Offham. So sadly, George, can you keep hold of your bar?
Offham.
Your foot. We've all gone off them.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly it. Okay.
You're Maidstone.
So I'm throwing mine.
Keeps
There is a
Lovely
list
village.
of
Lovely
trees
village
to
to
take
work.
out.
Really.
Okay. Right, it gets sent to me, not emailed, so I can pass it on to you easily. Mr. Phil Wilcox, tree warden at Wittersham for some 27 years, drove me to the various tree areas. We were accompanied by Lexi Dutter, retired Sissinghurst head gardener. I'm grateful for their most willing and knowledgeable support during my visit. I had at hand the comprehensive 2017 report of my predecessor judge, Alan Smith. This report was both descriptive and prescriptive, so I will not repeat the descriptive parts. However, I suggest that my successor takes note of the above report. Forge meads and car park. Some tidying up will be beneficial and a few trees should be removed. In front of number 5 and number 8 Forge meads, 3 cherries, they lean. One is deceased and the growth of the white beam is impeded. In front of 1 Forge meads, 2 limes due to overcrowding. Opposite 7 Poplar Road, a cherry without space to grow. From 13 to 36 Forge meads, planting a few more smallish trees along the broad grass verge would add greatly to the street environment. The green and the memorial garden. The mountain ash is leaning, which is one.
Yes.
Not at all aesthetic and should be removed. The safety of the turkey oak presents health and safety implications. And it's got Mr. Phil Cox. We'll discuss with the parish council. The street has many attractive trees. However, the cherry plums in front of the Addison cottages are getting on. Some 70 years old. So where appropriate, some new cherry plums should be planted. Churchyard. As is so often the case, the churchyard is a home for several interesting, well-grown trees. The Judas tree is in good health, but is still hampered by the lusty bramble, noted by Alan Smith, and really needs to be removed. There is a remarkable horse chestnut, perhaps 150 years old, and adjacent to it 3 younger horse chestnuts, all 4 without any sign of trunk bleeding. One finds also a tulip tree, liquid amber, amber, a superb red dawn redwood, and an ironwood tree. A young yew on the south side should be removed as it is too close to the adjacent line. A sycamore with untidy, unhealthy growth should also be removed. The old yew behind the church does well. An excellent alder is being attacked by another lusty bramble which requires restraining. 2 young walnuts do well, however their side branches have to be pruned. The cemetery, there is a variety of trees getting on, including limes, hornbeam, holly and probably a Scots pine, reddish-brown from the upper trunk. As noted last year, there is need for young trees to be planted. Lloyd's Green. This will be greatly enhanced both environmentally and aesthetically by planting selected, smallish trees along the open grass area. Children could be usefully involved in planting here and elsewhere, and Mr. Phil Cox has good ideas as to how to interest them and how to maintain this interest. In general, this unusual village at 200 feet above sea level, with high-wheeled clay and its gills, has an attractive tree scene in both public spaces and private gardens. The tree wardens are clearly totally committed to maintenance of high standards, long-term, throughout the village. The limiting factors to further achievement are funds for new trees, for tree planting at Forge Meads, Addison Cottages, the cemetery and Lloyd's Green, and for tidying up, particularly at Forge Meads and the churchyard. The Kentmen of the Trees will be pleased to provide some 20 trees for the coming planting season. Assuming that this offer is accepted, a list of the trees required as selected by the Parish Council and tree wardens should be submitted to the chairman by the end of October so that an order can be placed with the Kentmen of the Trees supplier. Right, as you probably gathered, most of the areas, apart from the churchyard, are ABC.
Yeah.
So one suggestion is to get Phil Cook down and go through it with him, see what he says.
But if you want him here, you can send it to him and say, what do you want done?
Yes.
What do you want to do?
And then Phil, back in September when they went round, he sent an email to Jeremy and I to say this is as a result of the Kentmen of the Trees annual visit, which was arranged at short notice, which Alexia also came on. I said that I would like to approach the school first because if children help with planting when appropriate, and especially if they put their names on the trees they plant, then they tend to take ownership, take a pride in what they have done and keep an eye on the trees' welfare. Ashwick Borough Council will also need to be involved. The chap, Brian Gray, sent this email to Phil saying that this is unofficial. I've sent him my report which will arrive at the council in due course. I've recommended planting of some 20 trees at Forge Meads, Addison Cottages, the cemetery in Lloyd's Green. So that's when that's having spoken to them that they agreed to donate them to us. If we would like to accept them.
Well, they said end of October, which obviously is gone.
Yes, this came
got
after the end of October.
Yes, indeed.
2nd of November,
The report was. Well, I mean, really, it's up to Phil and Lexi to give us some views, and also, as you said, Ashford.
I think Ashford is it. These trees are for Lloyd's Green and Addison Cottages and Forge Meads, which aren't our responsibility.
The men of the trees people. Do we tell them that we're fully supportive and we've got it? Because they're not going to just think they're being ignored, are they? Given the end of October.
Well, I wouldn't think so because they actually sent us a on the 2nd of November.
I know. But if we just what's the next step as far as that we're concerned with them?
Well, Yvonne can go back and say thanks for the report which came on the 2nd of November. Very helpful, etc., etc. A lot of the proposals actually are on ABC land, and we've passed that on to them for their
Consideration.
With our recommendation.
and the ones that affect Wittersham, so
What does the village?
and the ones for the village, we've got our tree wardens considering the proposals so that they can decide what we want to do.
Yeah, just holding.
Yes.
Indeed.
Yes.
Okay, let's do that then. Move on, please. Let's move on. ABC defining village confines. You had the letter that came in from Simon Cole.
Yes.
Bit extraordinary.
Yes.
They haven't so far sent the map by their deadline, which was last Friday. They've said it'll be a few days late or a week or something. And Yvonne has already said, well, obviously I'll have to extend the deadline in January. Oh, well, we might do by a few days. I think it's, as I say, all pretty extraordinary. It's Christmas and New Year. I don't really understand what they're trying to do or what the rush is. But the other anxiety I have is that they've always had this really bizarre definition. Defined in successive versions of the local plan, the limits of continuous and contiguous development. This is what the confines are. The limits of continuous and contiguous development forming the existing built-up area of the settlement, excluding any curtilage beyond the built footprint of the buildings on the site, e.g. gardens. So the village confines, you don't need us to consider it, you just draw a line around every building and that's the built confines. But it doesn't do anything for them. I mean, the idea is supposed to be deciding where you can fill in. You can't fill in where a building's already sitting on it.
Well, yes, and it reads like it's everyone's back door.
Yeah.
Which is bonkers,
Yeah.
really, isn't it? It needs to be at least a property boundary of the sort.
But they don't like that because that means you put houses in gardens. But basically this, I think they have a view. Bye-bye, Lee. Thanks for coming. I think they have a view.
I
think they have a view of what this is supposed to mean, but it's not what they wrote.
Could you ring in breakfast, Lee?
Thanks for coming. Nice to see
You're
you.
welcome.
They want us to consult with the village.
Yeah, but the problem is, as I keep saying, Yvonne, we've got to be consulting with the village on something. At the moment, the brief that we've been given doesn't add up. It doesn't add up.
And the other thing on village confines, it's interesting with earlier this year, it was actually our neighbouring district council, Rother, they decided to solve their housing problem by redrawing the parish boundaries and adding 10 houses there and 5 there and 3 there and 2 there. The majority went to Hastings and Bexhill, but that's how they managed to solve it all. So, this is just a complete muddle.
But what? I mean,
we can't go and consult with the village on something like this. They think, no.
If you had, ours is not like this really, but if you had a village a bit more like Iden, as I perceive it, where the houses are dotted around, and you said, okay, there is this street here with these houses dotted around, so we'll say the built confines are there. Now, we've got this bit, we can put one in. This, built confines means something that you can do something with. But if built confines means where is a house actually sitting, that's it, well, you haven't come up with anything useful. And that's what this appears to me to say.
Well, also, is there any clue in the fact that their proposal, which has now been struck off for the 40 houses, by that definition, was actually outside of the village confines?
Oh, it was. It definitely was. But it was even on what we think of village confines might mean.
Should we decide what our village confines should be and submit it to them for them to refuse it?
Our suggestion.
Well, what they say here is they're sending us a map, and when we get the map, it'll be interesting.
We can do it.
Yes. It'll be interesting to see if the map meets the definition or not.
Yes.
It may be that this is what they're really saying very badly in this letter, is we used to have this definition that was totally useless, so we're going to send you a map that means what we mean it to mean. And then you can consult on it. Because if, for argument's sake, take Leslie's, if the village confines simply went out beyond Tile House to Checker Tree Farm, and that was the village confines and included Mount Pleasant, that's fine. That's the village confines. You got a bit you can build in. If, on the other hand, the village confines stops at Tile House and you're a distant house, fine. We know what it means. But if you just draw around all the houses, you've done nothing.
Unbelievable. Well, hence their comment, well, one of the planning officers' comment, that we could do a lot of infilling in Wittersham. Clearly, someone who wasn't looking at a map at that time or any time before.
Exactly.
Well, I need to go back and say,
Yeah.
I mean, we look
Well,
forward,
wait
for the map.
I should get. Well, I think, as I said, that if they want us to consult, then I would have to know by the 15th to put it in the magazine to say that we're having this consultation and come along and see what's proposed. So she said, "Oh, thank you for that. That's good to know the deadline. I hope to get it to you by then."
Which won't happen, and then they won't get it by the 7th of January.
Can't possibly.
In fact, 7th of January is pretty difficult anyway because of the season.
well, I think if ever they want to consult, we invite them to come along and present their case.
That's right.
Yes.
Good luck.
Yes.
Okay, let's.
So
Hallelujah.
we're not doing anything. I'm not doing anything.
Well, you're waiting for the map.
No,
That's
no,
all
so-
we're doing.
Waiting.
Yeah.
That's all you can
Can't do
do.
That's all you
anything
can.
to get a map.
We need to see the evidence.
We like a nice nap.
Okay, let's move on quickly. So, payment authorisations. Can I just flick through these quickly then? Lexi, £16.20
Yes.
for the box.
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Clark, £36.56 plus
Yes.
that for the cartridges.
Can I,
Hundred.
Carrie, I'll just explain about the DFIB.
That's all right.
That's what we have to
Let's
do.
let them
You
know.
keep your typing going, or maybe
Well,
you don't
I've
have to.
typed
You've got it.
that.
Okay.
Yes.
The DFIB bits
Yeah.
got used and had to be replaced.
Yes.
But the person died.
And can I say it was actually Helen Thompson?
Yes.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, and the way it works,
When was it?
apparently,
Yes. No,
When
not
it was
died.
last
Who
time.
actually used it.
When?
Used
when
it.
it was when I was
the
last
foot-
down in
The
Bristol, because I
football
got
club jumble sale, was it?
Oh, right.
it was the third weekend in
October.
yes,
Yes.
right,
that's
okay.
when it
Yes.
was.
Okay.
Because I had a call from her because
I
on the
don't know who
equipment
died.
Mm.
No,
Yeah.
I don't
it
know.
Wasn't
gives
the village.
my number to contact
Yeah.
once it's been used. So she rang me to say it's been used, it needs cleaning and what have you. So I said, right, I contacted John. He came out that night with Anita holding the torch to sort it out.
Yeah.
And then he said to me, right, we need a new battery
Oh, right. Okay.
and new pads,
Yeah.
which should have come straight away.
I wasn't aware of all
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
But yes, but she did say that somebody was doing CPR to the chap
Yeah.
at the time. She used it, but she thought he'd gone anyway.
that. Yeah.
I know we're on payment, but can I just raise a point, please, that several people mentioned to me in asking that, it might have been connected with that, is that it would be a good idea for the parish council to hold a training session.
Yes, we've already agreed that
Yes.
some
okay.
time ago.
Yes.
Oh, right.
And so what I've said to
Maybe
John,
that's
is we're going to arrange something for January because
Yep.
between now
Yeah.
and he said Saturday morning. Well, we said Saturday morning because when winter you don't want to come out at night. And he reckoned 2 sessions.
Right.
I think that's probably wise.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
We're just
Yeah.
organised that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we've
I've got,
agreed.
I need another, because they said 2 sessions and we only ever had the one.
Oh,
so
right.
in Idens wasn't it?
Have we organised then? Have we agreed the £143.95 plus VAT?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. And the ACRK want the £1,030 and 31p plus VAT for the housing needs survey. We've agreed.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're committed anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Working party reports. Caretaker. Nothing other than that Alf is waiting for his second appointment.
Well, he
To
has
see the back
received, but
doctor.
I will let you know at the end the
All right.
results of that.
Okay. Finance, we've got the monthly transaction
Yeah.
statement somewhere. Okay, is everyone happy with that?
Yes.
The donation to the property appeal didn't get onto the agenda for last month. However, it's something that comes out of the chairman's allowance, which we don't have, isn't something we have to agree on.
Yes.
So I drew a cheque anyway, but I'm sure you would have all agreed it.
Yes.
Yes. We totally agree with.
And the caretaker, which is part of the total one anyway.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Now we've got the caretaker scheme half-yearly statement. That's because it's always a month behind the other one because we are not quite on the financial year. We go from 1st of May. So you can see that we are under control, as the accountants would say. Yeah?
Yeah.
Good. Sign it as well.
Yeah. Grassroots notion movement.
Right, that's all done. Decisions received, Windrush Cottage was granted, as you see. Yvonne, I think, was chasing up Parish Court Road and the...
Yes, but I have got another decision,
Yes.
Tile House Orchards,
What happened?
granted
Yes.
For the road?
for the gateway.
Gateway.
But they've pushed it back, which is what Highways said they wanted. So it's got to be a hard standing bit so that they can park off the road.
Yeah, that's what. But it's nice to see that they can actually make decisions.
Okay.
That's worth repeating. Come on, for the edited highlights.
Right.
Should we do that other planning application now?
Yes, you're quite right. Good idea.
In case you forget again.
Yes. So does anyone have anything to say about Safala? Good points.
Can I just now go back to...
Oh yeah, you better read that. Though.
She's still on the M20.
She's
Right,
she stopped.
okay.
She's not. She stopped off. She stopped
She probably thinks we've all gone home.
She stopped off.
Because he got lost
Leeds
somewhere.
Council.
I wanted really only
Shush,
to
shush, shush.
represent myself and my family and to ensure anyone interested that my extension to Safala is to serve only to accommodate my family and also an elderly close friend of the family who will be living with me. I would appreciate you passing on this message at the meeting should I fail to make it. As you can imagine, we want to make sure that she has space to herself, so a slightly larger living space downstairs would accommodate that. We are, of course, only pushing that to the allowed limit for extensions. We know Wittersham very well and have many friends here. We are very invested in the preservation and protection of this wonderful village and looking forward to being part of this community.
Right.
I didn't have any concerns other than hearing what Roger had to say about his
Yeah.
concern about the finish. That was all. I'm
I
quite
think we can just
happy to.
I think just we're actually quite happy with accepting Roger's comment.
Well, he'll make his comment directly.
Yeah, directly, yes, but yes.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Can we just go back to the willow tree
Sure.
farm?
Yeah.
Just to let you know that I followed this up with the officer, and she's come back to say an informal application was received on the 31st of October for the proposed demolition of a stable block, erection of a new stable block, and the conversion stroke reuse of an existing barn into residential with associated ecological and landscaping enhancements. I did check and I did check that obviously we don't get involved in pre-application advice, which is what that is, and we're unlikely to know what she says either.
Well, I drove past there at 6 o'clock this morning. Lights were all on. So more vehicles than normal, and I would say there were 4, maybe 5 vehicles there. So either they start incredibly early in the morning, or that, as other local residents have pointed out, is being occupied overnight.
They're only washing their hands over there.
Oh no, it is occupied.
It is occupied, yeah.
Okay.
But what can we do?
All right.
Allegedly.
Okay.
We'll have our next meeting there.
Highways.
Do you need to reply or do anything further with that action group that exists down that way? Tim,
do I need to do anything?
Well, do we,
as a parish,
or do we need to ask you to communicate with them in any way?
Well, I
You
did
have
that
sent
as
us
a
letters.
response, and I've copied everybody in
Yes.
to it.
So there's nothing further to be done.
So really, I can't do any more until we receive a planning
It
application.
is that I had a call immediately before this meeting saying, what am I going to be doing about it? And I said, well, I'm sure it will be discussed and I'll let you know if anything further happens.
Can I just point out, Alan, that I did explain
I know. But I definitely might bring it up because I did have a call.
that there isn't any more we can do until we get a planning application.
Indeed.
Well, also, but Ashford are fully aware and are presumably taking the appropriate enforcement action.
Well, it's got
Has been issued.
not.
Well, they're not. Yeah, no, they're not.
They're not taking anything because they have been told
There's going to be a planning application.
they are not living in the mobile.
Oh yeah, that's true.
They have been told.
Well, then whose responsibility is it to enforce?
It's theirs, but I mean, if something there and somebody's putting in a planning application, they won't do anything until they have considered that. They'll only enforce once that's turned down, if it is.
Well, I'm not sure I'm fully in agreement in the sense that that's maybe what practically happens, but that's not necessarily what should happen.
Well,
because the how long will they wait before an application comes in, before they consider it?
I think you've got to do it within a certain number of weeks. And
So the resident, the owner of the property, has declared that he is submitting, and Ashford have accepted that he said
No,
he's submitting.
at the moment, he has put in pre-application advice.
Right.
Until he receives
the
advice.
Okay.
If he gets the go-ahead,
okay,
then he will put him in it.
Okay, but even if he doesn't, there's nothing to stop him putting in the application.
No.
Yeah.
And they won't enforce at that point, because otherwise they'd be enforcing people off and then having to reverse it when they eventually got the planning.
I'm just thinking what you say to the person who asked you what's being done.
Well, I think I felt I had to bring it up.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Because it came. We got the call just before the meeting, but I think it was done.
But I'm just thinking, I'm thinking of thinking of Ashford. So I think the answer to the person who asked you to say something must be done is that something is being done, and Ashford are doing it in the way that they've decided to do it.
Yeah, but I mean, if they put in their pre-application advice,
yeah,
and then nothing happens after that, they're told they can't do anything, and then they don't put in an application, eventually they'll enforce.
Right.
But if they'll then also wait to see whether that does come in.
Yes.
So but you were suggesting there's a time.
There is, but I don't actually know what it is.
That's right. Yeah.
Can I just say, Paul, that the group that Alan's talking about, the emails that they do between themselves, I'm included in it.
Okay.
So I am aware.
Right.
And the last time, because one came saying exactly that Alan should do something about this and that all councillors should be contacted and made to be aware. And I went back and said, Parish Council, all councillors are aware of what's going on. And that I'm onto it and I can doing all I can, and gave them the up-to-date information I had.
And the ball is in Ashford's court then?
Yeah.
The best thing for them to do actually is to get onto Mick and
Precisely.
get Mick to chase the
Yeah.
officers.
Yeah, that's the answer at this stage.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, because otherwise,
Because he can wander
as you
up
rightly
there.
say, Alan, somebody is there.
You can go and say what you do.
You know.
Yes, there is somebody.
So you know, why don't you go and
where their idea of sending someone down to find out what was going on and even enforce was actually a fairly young woman.
Yes.
And yes.
Well, because only
Yes, I
that
understand what you mean.
what chance has a person like that against?
Except that they weren't planning to enforce on that occasion. They were making inquiries about enforcement at that point.
Yes, but even to make inquiries,
and he is
would not be very. It wouldn't be very
except
deliberate, would it?
I'm not supporting him, but he is going through the right channels, and they would advise him to do. So he's not done actually anything much wrong yet.
Okay.
It is difficult for someone like that to go, especially with the sign saying, guard dogs running through.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. It's
but that's inappropriate.
But
it's
all we're
very
doing
common.
is just going round in circles. It's up to Ashford. Let them do their thing. Ultimately.
But your recommendation, I think, is a good one.
Yeah.
Pass it to Mick.
Yeah. Okay. Highways working party. I don't know if there's anything happened. I will talk about the highways seminar for a moment when we get to items for information.
Can I just say that the cat's eyes, if you remember, I was chasing for that and I was told that they weren't going to do it because it was, well, whatever. So I went back and said I wasn't asking for anything new, just to be reinstated, and I got an email almost by return from somebody else saying, oh, it's been programmed in.
Oh,
so I don't know, but Peening Quarter should have been done last night. The stock should be done tonight. They're doing it between 8 and 5.
There were some traffic lights at Peening Quarter.
Yes, there were.
Ones.
Good. Okay.
Maybe.
Public lights away. Anything you done? I don't know.
No, nothing.
Okay, open spaces. You've had an inspection today.
I have. Everything looked very good.
Good.
Particularly
really?
warm and moist. I have. Sorry.
Cemetery and
Cemetery and
churchyard.
I didn't get home till last night.
No.
No. Okay.
Nothing. No.
Village Hall Committee, George.
We haven't met since the last time because we
Okay.
only meet every 2 months
Good.
now.
Good.
Oh, okay, so because that's what it used to be, and I did it every other month. So now it'll be next month.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay, thanks.
The next meetings we know about, and we get seasonal refreshments. Items for information, I'll start. The KCC Highway Seminar, I've sent you a few pages on it, if you care to read it. The interesting thing is the new officer, the new director, totally different character.
The guy from the private world.
Largely, and then Highways Agency.
Yeah.
His message, very quiet spoken. I think he'd be pretty angry because the presentation there was rubbish. The sound system didn't work, the room was the wrong shape, the screen was too small, they didn't even have a screen to start with, they did it on the wall. I mean, all that was awful, but his wordings were pretty good about not faffing about, don't waste all the money thinking about what you're doing, just get on, do the job, use it on what you need, make sure the roads flow, make sure people have consistent journeys, make the roads safe. You know, really, I'm a results man, he was saying, by any other name. Now he's going to come across an awful lot against an awful lot of KCC culture, not only his own island people, but also no doubt the finance, the internal audit, the scrutiny committee. Oh, you can't commit any money before it's all been, you know. But we'll see how he gets on. He must know that world from 5 or 6 years in the Highways Agency. But impressive. The previous guy that he replaced was the waste man.
Yeah.
When they
There's nothing like having
they
a
merged
waste
them, they paid off the highways and the waste man did it.
Doesn't sound like a superhero, does it?
It's not waste.
The other thing is as a quantity surveyor, what are quantity surveyors about? They are about money and efficiency.
See.
That's their job. Let's hope. So let's hope. Yes. And now the other thing is that I lit on him straight away when we broke for tea. I was the first one to catch him. And I introduced myself and I said, you won't have heard of Wittersham yet, but we are pilot caretaker scheme. You are paying us money and you are not getting enough out of it. I said, it's a political thing. It had Paul Carter's support. We keep trying to do more for you and they don't want to know. And he said, that's great. I'm really interested. Email me. Let's find out what we're going to do together. Because it was all about partnership at the conference. And when I said about the drainage, people had just said they didn't want to do anything with us, all too complicated. I said, and we were pretty shocked, Yvonne and I, because we were really critical of the Amy contract and then it got extended. And his words about the Amy contract, I won't actually repeat on the tape, but he lets me have no doubt at all that it is not the way he would have done it. He's been there 4 months. Also a new cabinet member who's younger. Okay, any other items for information, guys? George?
No, not as far as I know. Just about the NHS listening event in
yes.
which was quite interesting. It was well attended. I felt they were coming at it from the wrong angle, I'm afraid, and that was just perhaps, I'm a bit partisan, having been in the trade for a number of years. There were a lot of parish councillors, a lot of borough councillors. There was a lot of, how to put this, entitled demanding, and that they felt that everything should be better, and nothing was any good. But there it is. That's the way of the world. I think the Marsh is, perhaps it wasn't the best one to go to, but it was the one that was convenient for me. I could have gone to actually, but it wasn't at the time that I could get. So, and this had brought up a lot of people from Lyd and places that I've forgotten about on the edge of the society down there. I mean,
sure.
Lyd, let's face it, is a forgotten town, really, isn't it?
Oh, it is. Yeah. Back end and beyond.
But New Romney and the rest of the Marsh were hammering out their woes. What's interesting today, and you may already know this, but I just happened to look on the portal for the Ivy Court, my old hunting ground, and the grand new domed building. Sorry, it's a private view, and I think it's probably all right to say it, but I think they've been a bit too ambitious, and I think it has been turned down.
Yes, so yeah.
I thought it had been recommended refusal, but it.
Oh, maybe that's what it is.
It was recommended for refusal
Yeah.
by officers.
And because they don't, I mean, what they say is that, look, we advised you to come back and reduce the top story.
Isn't it going to the planning committee tomorrow?
Yes, that's right. It's tomorrow. Officers had recommended
So it hasn't
Yeah.
turned
down.
down yet. Okay,
And so
I was wrong then.
but I mean, reading through, I thought the writing was probably on the wall because they didn't go back with a modification, which was probably a mistake, because it's got things like a common room and things on the top floor, which the planning committee didn't see to be entirely necessary for provision of health.
Yeah.
And it is a great big dome building, really what is now a tiny site. So
Yes.
I fear that I'm afraid they've got sort of too ambitious for that site, and that's a pity.
But it'd be interesting to get the politicians tomorrow.
I mean,
Support.
maybe they'll get it passed. Having read the document, I rather doubt it.
Yeah.
But there it is.
Yeah.
Well, of course, it's the cabinet member for planning. Not the planning committee, but the cabinet member for which is Nick. But the planning committee, the cabinet member for planning, portfolio holder, is the ex leader of Tenterden. So he's Clokey.
Who's that?
Paul Clokey is
Clokey.
the cabinet member.
Well, goodness, I mean,
for
so does he get a vote? I suppose he does.
Yes, he
Not
will.
on the planning committee, but he's got the higher level considerations.
And it depends whether he's a member of he's a patient of the practice, and whether he regards health as more important than
I think in recent
architects or vice versa.
I think in recent times he's well used these services.
Right.
Well, I hope he had a good service.
Well, that's from it. Not he's still walking.
Okay.
Let's hope he had a good service.
Alan's retired, as we always say.
Indeed, I'm quite pleased.
Okay.
It's not my problem.
Indeed. Let's move on, Sue.
No, nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. Paul?
A couple of quick ones. The Action with Communities in Royal Kent had an AGM today, and I was re-elected as a trustee. So our voice is there, and I'll come on to that, which might be more important in the closed session. But it was interesting that the village halls, 172 village halls have been helped in the last 12 months in terms of governance and funding. And there have been over 300 people trained through Rural Kent, and a lot of that comes from the village hall.
Yeah.
Actually, I ended up talking to the chairman of the village hall of Woodchurch, who has only been in post for 4 months. There's Filton or Finton, but he's very nice. And he was asked about the caretaker scheme, and I said, if you're interested in that, you should talk to our chairman. He knows all about it. So if you get a call from him at some stage, it's Woodchurch. Yeah, they were just interested in that. So that's that bit. The second bit is that, as I told you at the last meeting, I have tried to make contact with Kate Richards, our PCSO, and I've sent her an email saying that I'd like to sort of see if we could reinvigorate the Police Parish Forum, and I'd explain why it was good in the past, etc., etc., etc. And we'd be very willing to host the first one, and I haven't heard anything back from her. But she's not here tonight. She could be away on leave or whatever. But anyhow, I'll probably send out a. I don't know if you saw this email. And I'll copy Yvonne in it again, and maybe I'll just copy her inspector in.
I can go because she's the report that. Report here.
Oh, you've had a report?
Yes.
Okay.
So
if you
I
speak
can
to her, then maybe that
respond
will
to
save me. It'd be great to know if she actually got it. You have, obviously. But anyhow, that's got nothing to report on that, but hopefully we're pushing it forward. That's it.
Okay, and you've got the PCSO report.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's gracious.
Almost a repeat of last month, really. Crimes continue to remain low in Wittersham and surrounding areas, with few incidents being reported. Lower some basic steps to help secure your property, especially with the darker nights going in, etc. Which also includes a home and garden security sheet that may also help residents. Would like to remind all residents to stay vigilant and report anything suspicious, etc., etc.
Okay.
Same as we have every.
All right, that's good. Thank you. Thank you for sending it. She's diligent in that respect. Okay, so that's the items for information. Nothing else from you? No?
I don't think so.
Okay, so can we resolve by the nature of the sensitivity of the next item to exclude the public? I know they're not here. The sworn in. Can we approve that?
When you exclude the public, even if they're not here, does that mean we don't minute it?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's
Yes.
potential minutes.
Can you propose that, George?
Yes, I'll propose.
Sue, seconded.
Yes.
Everyone agreed?
Yes.
Okay, so we have done that. This will be then a closed session.